Good morning, everybody. Very good morning. Happy Sunday morning live. It went from totally hot yesterday at 70 degrees over here in Ohio, totally uncharacteristic, to like 30 degrees. So what a jump in the weather. Very, very, very interesting. And of course, all of this instability in the atmosphere and in the tectonic plates and in the, well, finances are actually pretty good, but the political landscape is really interesting. So lately I've been making the connections about biochemistry and politics, and now I understand on a really larger picture how biochemistry and imbalances and balances will dictate your politics, and why we have such a disparity between Democrat, Republican, and then you can say rich and poor, yeah, but that's a bit more under the social constructs. Rich and poor is more of a distraction than it really is getting to the root cause, because there's a reason why you're rich, whatever that means, because that rich is relative, and there's a reason why you're poor. And it's not because the man is keeping you down. Actually, it's people keeping themselves down, but they blame it on the man because they don't have it under control. But I don't want to get caught up in rich and poor. It's really about balance versus imbalance, the ability versus lack of ability, Democrat versus Republican, and then you have shades of those in between. So now I understand what socialism really is, and capitalism, and how we have to understand what capitalism is like. Pure Darwinism. I mean, only the strong survive. I mean, and when it's pure capitalism and pure Darwinism, there is no stay of execution. Well, what is the stay of execution? It's everything that gives you a chance to turn your life around. It's not like you're given these cards and now the cards are being dealt with and that's it. No, you have a chance to turn your life around. That's what modern medicine has given people. However, too much modern medicine you give to people will destroy them. So that's why you have to have a mixture of socialism and capitalism, because you don't want to have pure Darwinism, because pure Darwinism is like living in a third world country where if you have major imbalances and major predispositions, most likely you will not be able to survive the elements. And so that's why there's a high infant mortality rate in third world countries that don't get the stay of execution, which is the vaccines. Okay. And so that's, again, here in America, we have great modern medicine. We have great interception of diseases. However, you exhaust all of your resources, literally and figuratively, then there is no more light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have any recourse. It's like when you're in hospice, it means there's nothing the system can do for you anymore. And so this is where the J juice comes in. So socialism versus capitalism is like Mother Nature versus man-made laws. Good morning, Walter Burton, and good evening. So that's why I'm saying, you guys, that to understand Jilly juice is to understand it is Mother Nature, and it is pure Darwinism, but not on the death trajectory. It's on the life trajectory. But right now in our society, we have pure Darwinism where we are creating kids and people who will either survive for a certain amount of time, and if they have enough resources within, they'll survive longer than others. But those that don't have enough resources within, or they've depleted them all through all these different stages of executions, they won't survive. Okay. And so now we're kind of changing everything up, and that's what the whole Jilly juice is about. I mean, some of you have been introduced to Jilly juice, just like kind of a little bit from the background from other people, or you've heard about me through the internet, or Dr. Phil, or just from other groups or talking smack. And it's controversial because you have to deal with pain. You got to deal with pain. You got to shit your brains out, but you're not being dehydrated because the salt is rehydrated. Plus, then you have the water as the balancing force. Plus, then the micronutrition from the cabbage and kale that's being fermented. Plus, the water carrier force. Okay, so the whole point of Jilly juice is to now reintroduce what healing is. It's not throwing stuff at you and taking the parts out of you, and it's not taking pills, powders, and supplements and detoxes and anesthetizing the pain and taking drugs to stop the pain. It's actually meeting pain where you're at healing so the pain can work for you, not against you, so you don't end up in hospice, so you don't end up somewhere where there's no return. Okay, because here's the thing: if pain is healing, and or if healing is painful and death is painful, you don't have to die from healing. You could actually live from healing, from being in pain. Okay, and that is a hard concept to get across, especially to Dr. Phil, who is part of the medical establishment, who really isn't a real doctor like a medical doctor. He's a psychologist with a doctorate. He works more with people with the psychology behind their issues. He's not a nutritionist, but even nutritionists don't know this information because they are working with people's imbalances. They're saying, okay, you have an imbalance in your fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. So we're going to say, okay, do more of this and avoid this. And that's how they deal with people's issues, to kind of give them another stay of execution. But it still doesn't get to the root cause. Okay. So, and that's the same thing with the vaccines. Okay, because vaccines, where you have such a difference in the perception of them, especially when people have so many issues and they're making correlation equals causation because they already have the predisposition. So no matter what, whether you get a vaccine and you get all the adjuvants in there, as well as a virus that's actually invaded a bacteria, they call them bacteriophages, and they're put into the vaccine and then they're injected. It's no different than when you go out there in the population, shake hands with people, kiss people, commune with them, and they have bacteria that's been invaded by viruses called bacteriophages. And then there's the proteins, the minerals, all the things that are in the vaccine, actually vaccines, they're called adjuvants, they get them in the food supply. Okay, some of them, so you're getting injected into the bloodstream or into some parts of the body, or you're getting them ingested in your body. Either way, you're going to get exposed to the environment preemptively through the vaccines, but it's not as strong. But you don't know your predispositions. Most people don't know their predispositions, so they're going to have some kind of reaction. But rather than rolling the dice and saying, no, I'm not going to get a vaccine because of what the inserts say, which is a potential based upon your predispositions, people are going and rolling the dice and they're just risking it. And then what happens is they expose to a virus that's so strong on their weak body, and then they trigger the actual predispositions, like a very aggressive form. And that's why people are like losing their hearing or losing their eyesight or having major complications from exposure to flu viruses and everything else. Now, I'm not saying you guys to get a vaccine or not get a vaccine. You got to talk to your doctor, because I have no idea what your predispositions are out there. And so if they're saying that there's something aggressive out there, you listen to your doctor, because they can do the necessary tests to determine whether or not you are a candidate. And just like anything else, malpractice insurance, if they happen to misdiagnose you or they happen to not vet you out correctly, there are vaccine slush funds for those that have major adverse reactions and they weren't vetted out properly. And that's where malpractice insurance comes from, as well as the vaccine slush funds. Okay, so just because they have a vaccine slush fund doesn't mean that they know they're giving out a horrible thing. They just know that people have different biochemistries. Okay. And so it was kind of interesting. Somebody on my Facebook or on my business page, Jilly LC, because I have a business page too that I have some haters that go on there and laugh and talk smack, but I do delete and block those that laugh and talk smack. I mean, when they're actually making comments. But someone mentioned that, oh, you would be great as a president and all that stuff. That would be way down in the future if I decide to do that, because there's still a lot for me to understand as far as diplomacy and understanding cultures and understanding me and understanding how to get this across to my own people. I want to save my own people, okay, the people that I'm around, and give them an opportunity and understand what they have to go through and understand all the politics around going through the healing process before then I go out and branch out worldwide and be a world policeman. Though I kind of am right now, because everybody from all over the world is seeing my information. But it still starts at home. This information is so important. It starts at home. You guys have to understand this, because some of you do have the time to understand Jilly Juice. If you go to my YouTube channel, which I'll put down one of the videos on my YouTube, so you can go to that and then you can go see all the other videos that I have. You can see kind of my thought process. Okay, I've been doing this ever since like October 2016, and then been through all the different, I don't say the learning process as far as the learning curve, advertising, learning the advertising laws, learning, how to roll this out and deal with the backlash, because any kind of new information is like an upset of homeostasis. It pisses people off. Truth, no matter what kind of truth it is, it's going to it goes through 3 stages. The first stage is like, ridicule and making fun. And the second stage is like violently opposed. And the third stage of truth is at some point it does get accepted as self-evident. And I don't care what truth it is that you're putting out there. Okay. It could be a truth that you think is like a conspiracy truth that is completely conflicting with someone's thought process that's not a conspiracy person. But no matter what, any kind of truth out there is going to first be really misunderstood and made fun of and violently opposed, because people are in different levels of decomposition. And this is difficult to grasp, that you could potentially trigger indefinite life. There is that possibility. Why would I even say that? Because I already reversed all of my issues. I'm 46 years old, doing completely well, mind clear, body, mind, and spirit totally clear. I am not any different than all of you. And we're working with a universal type of concoction, which is basically sauerkraut juice, but it's not as thick as sauerkraut. It's actually a fermented cabbage juice with a certain amount of salt that people had to take issue with, because they don't understand that salt is not the reason why people get high blood pressure. Okay, salt is an energizing force and it's needed in the body. However, people have predispositions. And when you do the Jilly juice, you're going to have symptoms, because symptoms is a body's way of adapting. But people deal with their adaptation the wrong way. They throw drugs at it. They throw operations at it. They take out organs. They take out everything. Not everything, take out a lot of things, and they put in implants. Okay? So when you're going through adaptation, you're going to have an energizing force. Like when people have heart attacks, it's because they have weaknesses in their cardiovascular system. And so it's the body is kind of like its own defibrillator, and it's taken the minerals, like the electrolytes from the body. And that's what people start depleting their resources, because they have malnutrition from malabsorption. How does that happen? You have imbalances in your fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, as well as your bacteria. And then it's punching holes in your gut. So that way you're not absorbing the nutrition. And so it's leaking out more than you're absorbing. And then you don't have enough on reserve to then carry you through the adaptation process. When you go from summer to fall, that major temperature change, that adaptation, that's why you see the rise in the flu season, why they're putting out flu shots, because people already have the predispositions. They have been already exposed to viruses. You can't get away from viruses. There's no antivirals out there. Antivirals are just drugs that manage your symptoms, suppress the pain, which suppresses the healing. And then people have these major symptoms, and then guess what they do? They throw Mucinex because they're afraid to allow their body to release excess mucus. They throw painkillers. They throw everything at the body, herbal remedies to opioids and everything else, and taking out stuff. And then they never heal. So then you have compound predispositions that they're creating, because they're creating traumas along with suppressing the immune system, suppressing the body's ability to heal. And that's why you see then the gradual degradation of humanity, and some faster than others. And so the whole thing with the Jilly juice is you have to feel pain. And then when you have to deal with things like kids and priorities and things like that, then that's when you bring in modern medicine, if you want to then kind of help you deal with it. But too much modern medicine will then undermine your body's ability to actually regenerate cells at the cellular level. And so people are afraid of the salt. I think the salt causing issues, high blood pressure. But no, high blood pressure is the fact that you have such a depletion in your hormones, and such a depletion in your minerals, and such a depletion in the stagnation in your cardiovascular system, that it is now pumping a certain hormone that raises your blood pressure, because it's now forcing it to go faster, because you have such low malnutrition. You have malnutrition, you have a low mineral reserves, and then it's pulling resources, causing a higher blood pressure, which then of course, yes, it's taxing your heart, it's taxing your body. But at some point when you deplete your resources because of high blood pressure, that's when you don't survive a heart attack. So the fact people have heart attacks and strokes says that the body is recognizing there is a malfunction and is trying to repair itself, But if you don't give your body what it needs, the next time you get a heart attack, or if you don't make any changes, the next time you get a heart attack or a stroke, you won't survive it. Okay? And so that's where all of the backlash that I'm getting from is people are so afraid of the salt. And then they don't like the fact that I'm talking about indefinite life or regrowing limbs and organs and reversing all cancer, disease, and chronic illness from A to Z, which, then I had to change my advertising. So if you read the internet and look at all of like Daily Mail, Pathos, who else? BuzzFeed, Newsweek, they're all talking smack saying that I was responsible for somebody in hospice's death. No, they were trying to make correlation equals causation. But why you die in our society is the fact that you're applying the wrong chemistry to your body. And it's letting you know systematically that the body is breaking down, and every single time you throw something at it through the allopathic or the holistic, allopathic is modern medicine, holistic is holistic medicine, you are deadening those parts of the body to where it's like when you go out there and you look at parts of the world where industrial waste has kind of killed off a biodiversity. That's kind of like your body. You have deadening parts of your body through your way of dealing with pain. And then what happens is you eventually shut down the vital organs. Because the reason why people grow old and then you see the graying of the hair and the beard and the wrinkles or the different fluctuations in your biochemistry, the hormonal imbalances, is because the body is stealing resources or it's overproducing and causing imbalances, and it's trying to keep your vital organs alive. But once those resources get depleted, that's when people don't survive heart attacks and strokes, or they trigger some major situation to where then it stops the hormones from moving your muscles to where you can swallow, and then you drown in your own fluids. And so the whole thing with the waterfalls, because that's what people are also tripping out on Dr. Phil, is the waterfalls. Oh my God, it's dehydrative. It's taking all the minerals out of you, taking all the water out of you. No, waterfalls is like a demethylation. It's like DNA demethylation. Right now we have DNA methylation. What is that? When people are full of shit. If you have a big belly, if you're a big dude, most of you that are reaching 40, 50, 60, 30, and you're seeing a belly gradually, become bigger, it's a lot of poop, it's a lot of fat, it's a lot of everything. And when you do the Jilly juice, you're going to feel pain. Yes, you're going to feel headaches, all this stuff, everything that you've ever been, everything that you ever dealt with as far as symptoms. But you have to release that shit. You're full of shit. And when you're full of shit, guess what that methane does? It asphyxiates your cells, and it causes anomalies. It causes chemical imbalances. It causes biochemical imbalances. It causes then people to then causes the DNA, the RNA to mutate. And that's when you start seeing the triggers, the cancer triggers, all the different health triggers. So when you release the shit, it's called autophagy, but you're not just doing a laxative. Don't be turning to laxatives or saltwater flushes, because those will do nothing for you. They may release some poop, but it doesn't fix the weaknesses. So you still have leaky gut. The J juice is so profound and so different than Mucilex or laxatives or Miralax or any of those saltwater flushes release of poop, is the fact that it not only releases the poop and releases all the bad stuff, the jetsam and flotsam in your body, but then it also repairs the damage. So you have the energizing force of the pink salt, which has the minerals, and the water is the carrier force, the balancing force. Then you have the micro and macronutrition from the fermented cabbage and kale, which then heals the gut, because guess what? What major hormone that's in the cabbage as well as the kale, well, in the cabbage, vitamin U, it heals ulcers in your gut. You know what your gut is? 5 feet of large intestine and 20 feet of small intestine. That is your second brain. That's what controls everything in your body. And when you have so much holes in your gut, then you're not getting the proper nutrition. And so the jade juice heals the gut with the micro and macronutrition from the cabbage and kale. Salt is the energizing force, and the minerals are also causing, it's also balancing out your minerals. But then you balance out your fatty acids, because you have lactic acid from the fermentation. Okay, that's what probiotic is. It's a type of acid. What you're doing with the jade juice is you're fermenting something at room temperature, at life temperature, between 65 and 72 degrees. You're in a really cold climate. Guess what? You create antibodies. those antibodies shut the body down, and then then that weakens everything, and that's when you die, right? So you have to be in a temperature of 65 or 72 degrees. Anything higher, really high, I mean, the body has the ability to kind of adjust temperature, but if you're in a constant heat stasis, like you're doing hot yoga, or you're in saunas all the time, or you're in constant cold all the time, and you're not regulating, recalibrating all the time, then antibodies, this is what people die from also, is antibodies, because that's what causes heart attacks and strokes, is too many antibodies clogging up the blood. When you have too many, what are antibodies? Those are things that balance out anything excess in your fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. And when you have too many antibodies, that also shuts the body down and causes degradation. Okay, so the J juice then has that fermentation, the lactic acid. Okay, from the lactobacillus. These are bacteria that are produced during the fermentation process. That's how life exists. That's what life is these bacteria that then break down what it's being paired with. So when you're doing like another fermentation, like beer and wine and all of that, that uses a bunch of sugar. Sugar is not inherently bad. You need sugar because the sugar, the glucose, is in those IV bags to rehydrate people. And sugar has been demonized because, yes, people have imbalances in their acids. However, when you have too much sugar, then it causes more acid imbalances. And so when you're fermenting with sugar and fruit, and then you're creating a probiotic type of effect as well, that's a massive amount of acid that you're producing with an already acidic imbalance. And you have, the candida. What's candida? It's yeast. What is yeast? Yeast is the body's bacteria that it needs, and it's an actual communication system that transports information through all parts of the body. But when you have too much yeast, then you get too much information on, bodies are not working correctly, and that's where you have candida. That's when you have fungal infections. So all the different symptoms out there, or diagnosable diseases with fungal stuff, is because you have an overabundance of yeast, candida, and then people are throwing so much sugar at it, feeding it, plus then all the different heavy metals, or the mineral imbalances. And so now you have an out of control fungus that basically eats people alive. Okay, so the bacteria is what your body needs, and it's producing, it's breaking down the cabbage and kale, and then it leaves a byproduct. It actually breaks down it to where you can get it at a pre-digested state, no different than when, like, mother's milk, that's broken down nutrition, as well as when a mother bird regurgitates in the baby bird, because it broke down the food out there, and then her enzymes and all that stuff broke it down so the baby bird can get the actual nutrition. It's the same thing with J juice. It's like mother's milk to a body that is so messed up. Because you do cabbage, you do kale, you drink salt water, you eat vegan and vegetarian, all that stuff, you still have malabsorption, you still have issues. Your body can't break down that food to get to the root cause, or to the nutrition. And so you have to break it down with the J juice. And so when I did the kale ferment, it was a total different source of nutrition. And so it really gave me the waterfalls, because it worked really fast. It let go of any excess waste I had, and it fed my cells. And it was just a massive amount of nutrition. Okay. And then there's a diet with the J juice, because there's a diet with it that it has you understand what each food supply represents as far as your biochemistry. Because here's the thing, so you understand how it's broken down. You have fatty acids. This is what your body's made up of: fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, plus in the bacteria. Okay, bacteriophages, which is the viruses you're always going to be exposed to that invade those. But the reason why people get cancer, and they get viral type of cancers, is because they have weaknesses. And when you have weaknesses, those viruses then start recycling you back into the universe. And why it does that is because you have imbalances in your fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. And that's why you're seeing, we have kind of like the Walking Dead out there. And so what I try to do is just drop seeds to those that are willing or open enough to understand this process. Some of you have the capacity to understand this information, and you have the means to do it. You have the time, you have the temperature, you have the ratios to do this protocol. But you have to understand mechanically what it's doing for you. Okay. And so that's the thing with the vaccines too. Like I said, people, right now you're seeing such a controversy around it. You're seeing such a controversy around it, but it's like, no matter what, if you're not repairing the damage in your gut, in your body, from all the weaknesses, then it doesn't matter if you eat a tomato, you take a vaccine, you go and breathe air that may have a lot more elements or minerals, you're going to have a reaction to your environment, because the environment is made up of elements on the periodic tables, compound elements on the periodic tables. All of your food supply is a component of compound elements and bacteria and fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. When you break everything down, like in biodiversity, humans, plants, animals, insects, all they're made up of is fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals, and viruses and bacteria. And then viruses and bacteria put together are called bacteriophages. Okay? And so now it's a matter of, when you bring something in your body, you'll know when you have an adverse reaction, you have an imbalance somewhere. When you have fear, paranoia, bullyism, being a victim, that's a manifestation of imbalances. When you have obvious skin issues, when you have diagnosable diseases, when you have grain in your beard, that's a sign you have imbalances in your fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, as well as your bacteriophages. And so now it's up to you to actually take on your life, because guess why we keep reinventing the wheel? Guess why we keep having these kids every freaking generation talk about the climate and climate engineering and afraid for their future, or want to go live off the freaking grid and take us back to flipping caveman days? Is because we keep recycling the same people who don't know their history, keep reinventing the wheel, have to relearn, have to reinvent, and then they go out and protest and outcry, and then they freaking die. Why we have such a such a difference between Democrat and Republican is it's because it's where you're at in your healing process. Some of you are totally trying to adapt, full of adaptation issues, and you can't work very well or make kind of money, so you become socialist. You want the government to feed everybody equally. And that's why we have this push and this pull between unhealthy and healthy people, the capitalists and the Darwinists, the pure Darwinists, as far as survival of the fittest, are Republicans, the conservatives, and even in body, mind, and spirit, because you could be totally failing in your health and still be Republican, because that's been ingrained in you that you work for what you get. But you know that there is definitely some issues out there as far as healthcare and Social Security. So even the Republicans are going to be taking on, socialist characteristics, because they're not getting their health insurance the way it's too expensive, because Obamacare has made it too expensive or something. But imagine if you actually got healthy and well, you wouldn't need all these services. Those that depend on the government are the ones that are anti-government because they're so tired of being dependent on somebody else. But they don't know how to express their disdain, or more than disdain. They don't know how to express their inability to adapt. So that's why I'm able to now bring everything together, because everything is connected. There is that politics and health and religion. Politics, health, and religion are not separate vacuums unto themselves. I need to write this down, because that's going to actually help me bring it all together on a continuous basis. Politics, religion, and health. They all are interchangeable. This is an expression of where you are on the life and death continuum. So you're always going to see, okay, socialism on the left, capitalism on the right, and you're going to have more people maybe socialist, less on cap, because you're going to see people who are degrading. And you can see why it is that a lot of young people are more socialist, because now they can't seem to even pull themselves up by their own bootstraps because they're so full of compound issues that they're not going to be capitalists because they don't have the ability to be it. They can't survive. They can't compete. They need mommy and daddy, literally and figuratively. So, you know, and then this whole thing with war, people are like, oh, throw love at the war. Throw love at the war. We shouldn't be at war. We shouldn't go over there. There are imbalanced people over there in the Middle East. Well, I mean, there's imbalanced government. The people, I don't think, represent the politics of that government, the Ayatollah. Okay. And so we're seeing things coming to surface as far as social media that the people are actually protesting their Ayatollah, shooting down their own planes as well as who knows what else. And then social media, there, those that have access to it over there in the Middle East are like, oh my God. And then we're like, oh my God, So, so we, when you have an imbalanced government overseas, you're going to have to go to war. No different than when you have compound predispositions that finally come to surface, like cancer disease, chronic illness. You're going to have to go to war. And if you don't have the ability to fight, you will roll over and die. But that's not the American way. And that's not the Jilly Juice way. We don't just roll over and die. Some of us will fight, but you have to fight it with the right artillery. And why people die is because they fight the battles with the wrong artillery. They're bringing a wooden sword to a fight that has metal swords. Okay? I mean, you're bringing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an analogy of when you bring something to a fight, when you're bringing bow and arrows to IED type of fight. I don't know, that's not even a good one. I'll think of one. But you cannot bring the wrong artillery to a fight when it comes to your body, mind, and spirit. And so sometimes it's necessary to go to war to even just threaten. Because let me tell you this, look at this. When I actually make the J juice, my body responds. I mean, I could feel the rumblings in my belly when I'm making the J juice. I haven't even drinking it yet, but my body can see it and it responds. Anything that's imbalanced in my body knows the threat of balance is coming soon. And it acts accordingly. It's a trip. Okay? I mean, when my husband says that he gets more pains when he comes home sometimes, he hasn't said it lately, but he did say it a couple weeks ago. The J juice is bringing to surface that which is causing him imbalances. He has more toothache, more of this ache, more of that ache. Because I'm sure the J juice is in the air. Okay? It's all part of me, my dog too. So anyways, I'm going to do my thing. It's my Sunday. My husband's upstairs doing his thing. But you guys just do the J Juice, read the information, go to jillyjuice.com, get the book. It's not completely revised in the way I wanted to because my politics are like anti-vax in the book, and I'm completely opposite now. But at least the protocol is in there, and you can watch all my videos on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook, watch the Facebook Lives, and think about how you want to fight the new battles that are coming up. And you have to understand that law and order is paramount. You can't let go of the law and order if you want to do J Juice, because you have to have law and order out there in your community. You can't be an anarchist. You can't be an anti-government person. And you have to have law and order within your body, because there's specific laws of life and there's specific laws of death. And when you die, you have violated the laws of life and you have promoted the laws of death. And when you continuously live, you keep following the laws of life. Okay? So that's what I want to impart upon you. There's two absolutes, life and death. And so if you follow the laws of life, you will live continuously. But if you follow the laws of death, you will see a gradual degradation in everything. And the specific measurable results are: look at your life, look at your beard, look at your hair or lack thereof it. Look at how many heart attacks and how many strokes, how many things that you've beat in your life, but you may not survive the next one. And that's what I want to get across to you. Too many stays of execution is a socialist type of thought process. At some point, you're going to have to trigger Darwinism, but Darwinism for life, not Darwinism for death. Don't be the weak that's going to be recycled back. Be the strong, survival of the fittest. Everything is connected. Remember, politics, religion, and health are connected, and they're continuing between socialism and capitalism. And that is every single society out there. Every single society. And if you don't get that, then you're living in a very compartmentalized world, in a vacuum, not realizing everything is connected. And then you'll never be able to relate to everybody, and you'll think that a lot of people are the enemy. There is no enemy. It's basically an aspect of you that's been unresolved. Just like your children are an aspect of you that's unresolved, or the best part of you. But the worst part of you is why we need law enforcement. The best part of you is why we have innovation and productivity. Let's have more innovation and productivity, less need for law enforcement. All right. Have a good day. Happy Sunday. Bye.